Gorham. I wrote you a poem at one of your last major birthdays. There are too many things I wanted to say, so I couldn't do a poem. But I wish you were here so I could give you a giant hug. I love you dearly. You've been a role model and a mentor forever. Take care.
Gorham, happy 100th birthday. I'm so proud of you. You're an inspiration to us all. Happy birthday.
I wish you the best on your 100th birthday. I still am extremely proud that I'm a winner of the F. Gorham Brigham Award of FEI, and I appreciate you very much, and I love you. Take care of yourself.
Happy birthday, Gorham. Happy birthday. Here's to the next 100 years.
Gorham, happy birthday. I wish I could be with you today. We've known each other for a long time, and you're one of my best friends. Love you.
Bruce Figaro, good to see you. Good to see you. Gorham, it's Rob Grace. We're excited. We're sorry you're not here tonight, but cheers to you.
Happy birthday. You'll see me a little bit later. Telling everybody about you. Gorham, it's Dave Dormer. Best wishes. Happy birthday. You're a legend. We love you.
Gorham, happy birthday from Mark Sinnott at Legal Seafoods, and thank you for helping me when I came to Boston.
Happy birthday, Gorham. 100. Fantastic. Congratulations.
Happy birthday, Gorham.
Hi, Gorham. I hope you have a wonderful birthday. It was so good to see you a few weeks ago. I'll call you soon.
Happy birthday, Gorham. I'm sure you've heard that enough today. Again, thanks for everything through my career, and I owe you a lunch. How about your place?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Gorham.
Happy birthday to you. And 100 more.
I'm Perry Morton, and I want to tell you how happy we are that you're able to be with us this evening. This is a very joyous and unique occasion. I say unique, by the way, because, well, let me ask you, how many 100th birthday parties have you been to? So, in my case, the answer was none. And so when I first got into this, I said, I wondered to myself, I wonder what you do for such a remarkable man who's been with us for 100 years. And, well, the answer came with a small group of FEI and Treasures Club people who put their heads together and came up with a lot of creative ideas about what we should be doing here. And sifting through all of those produced the event that you're all attending tonight. Most of you know these people already, but I want to tell you what a privilege it's been and how pleased I've been to work with Joe DiLorenzo and Al Faber, Sue Gorman, Kevin Marinelli, Sharon Merrill, and Peter Rocket. A key question for events of this kind is what will it take to make it all happen? And so very early on, Citizens Bank, where Gorham worked until he was 90 years old, by the way, they stepped up to help. And you'll be hearing from them in a little bit. From there, Blue Hills Bank came on board, and them and Robert Half, David Landau Associates, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and Price Waterhouse Coopers rounded out the group. And then R.R. Donnelly printed up a keepsake brochure, which we'll be handing out to you tonight. And finally, Mahoney's Garden Center gave us a very favorable price on the centerpieces that you have on your tables. So I want to thank all of them for their contributions. It's really true that this event, as we have planned it, simply couldn't have happened without their help and their support, and we thank them a whole lot. So we have a great evening planned for you. It happens that there's not a lot of time to cover 100 years here, and so what we're going to do is start the program while you're starting your salads. That's a little different than it's sometimes done. And then after a bit of the program, we'll break for dinner, and we'll pick up afterwards for the rest of the evening. The whole program is going to be led by Joe DiLorenzo, who I've already mentioned is a member of our group that put this together and had a big hand in everything that we've done for this event. Let's move along. I'd like to introduce the Reverend Stephen T. Ayers, who is not only a friend of Gorham's, but also the vicar of Old North Church here in Boston. He will say a few words and offer a prayer, and then Joe will pick up with the program. So, Reverend Ayers.
Thank you, Perry. Good evening. On behalf of the Old North Church and the Old North Foundation, I am honored to offer a prayer for this gathering as we celebrate Gorham Brigham's 100th birthday. One of the first, if not the first, phone calls I received 18 years ago when I became vicar of the Old North Church was from Gorham Brigham. And I understand I've stolen the line from about half the speakers tonight with that one. Gorham wanted to introduce me to all the key business leaders in Boston who took an interest in historic preservation, and he wanted to make sure that Citizens Bank would continue to be Old North's bank. A few years later, Gorham nominated a young colleague, Bruce Figueroa, to serve on our foundation board. Thanks to Gorham's many introductions and thanks to the ongoing generous support of Citizens Bank, Old North continues to flourish and is eagerly anticipating the celebration of our 300th birthday in 2023, just in time for the Olympics. Like many in this room, I am proud to call Gorham a friend and a mentor. And so let us pray. O God, our times are in your hand. Look with favor, we pray, on your servant Gorham as he begins another century. Grant that he may grow in wisdom and grace and strengthen his trust in your goodness all the days of his life. Grant those who are here to celebrate Gorham's 100th birthday a bit of his energy and all of his dedication to serve our community. Bless this food to our use and us to your loving service. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Ayers. It's truly an honor to be part of this evening's event. Throughout the course of this evening, you will hear from select people who, through a short story or two, will provide some insight into this wonderful, caring man whose 100th birthday we are here to celebrate. It looked as though Gorham might be here tonight. Unfortunately, he didn't feel well enough this afternoon to make the jaunt through the cold weather to get here. And so the committee elected to head out to West Newton and celebrate and blow out candles, not 100 candles, but blow out some candles today. Gorham has seen parts of this presentation thus far. He was quite emotional. He was quite gratified to see the outpouring of all the people who have been involved in the event tonight and the participation of so many of his friends here this evening. We are taping tonight's event. We will provide Gorham and his family a full set of pictures, video that we either collected or created for tonight's event. We've been doing this for 7 months, I think, as Perry might have alluded to. And we have a lot of Gorham's family members here. Scotty, Gorham III, and Bill. are sitting at these two tables along with their extended family. So I'd like to welcome them to this evening's event. I've had dozens of luncheons with Gorham over the years, and he would always ask, "What can I do for you?" Never, ever asking for anything in return. My normal response was something like, "Gorham, I really appreciate it. I don't need anything, but really, just your friendship has been phenomenal, your mentoring." At a luncheon, we were having, preliminary discussions about tonight's evening. Way back when, he asked me again, "What can I do for you?" And I must remind you, this is last June. I thought about it. Nothing came to mind. And then I had an epiphany. I said, "Gorham, there's a huge favor you can do for me." Gorham sits up straight, totally attentive, and asks, "What is the favor?" I said, "Please live to January 14th, 2015. He laughed and has yet to let me down in the 28 years I've known him. So we appreciate that. I met Gorham as a brash young CFO when I was with the Celtics way back when, and I had 4 life-changing events over a few-month period. One, the Celtics won a world championship and all the associated bling you get when you do that. My first child, Alexander, was born. I took the Celtics public, which was a very different thing in sports. And then I met Francis Gorham Brigham Jr. the third. That whole Francis part threw me off. We didn't know what that was until this process. At the time I met Gorham, my life could not have been more gratifying or more hectic. Finding time to participate in anything seemed impossible. Yet Gorham strongly suggested one needed to expand beyond life's basic devotions of family and work and add volunteerism and helping one's peers. Through Gorham's persuasive powers and my inability to dare to let him down, he got me involved with the Treasurers Club, FEI, and a few other charities, and it really was the best professional advice I've ever received. Gorham would, anyone who had lunch with Gorham, he would share early episodes of his life. And, you're exposed to certain things that you maybe not are accustomed to when you get out of college. This includes situations where either you are asked or expected to do something that you are professionally uncomfortable with. And Gorham had these experiences throughout his career. And he would constantly provide validation by saying, "Do the right thing," and I think that pretty much embodies Gorham's life. For many of those meeting Gorham for the first time, it was evident he wanted to get to know you and offer advice about his career, about your career. Initially, some people might think his comments could be perceived a little bit disconcerting. Having this conservative, older man critiquing one's choice of clothing or appearance, regardless of whether one was male or female, could be taken the wrong way. Political correctness be damned, I think, especially when Gorham might tell a woman he didn't like that dress or those shoes, but what confidence in a man, and clearly what courage. And he hasn't changed in 99 years and 51 weeks. For months he's been telling me I need to lose weight. So Al Faber and I were having lunch with him, and we were leaving. He goes, "I got to ask you a question." And I'm lovingly laughing inside, saying, "Here we go again with the weight thing," or "Are you going to wear socks to the event at the Harvard Club?" When Mr. Subtle says, "Before you host my event, You are going to get a haircut, aren't you? As only Gorham can do it. He is priceless. So yes, on the way home from his house, I stopped by a hair salon, and yes, I am wearing socks. So, it's time to really continue with the main portion of the program. There are tent cards on everyone's table that will provide a summary of what the event's going to look like. So without further ado, it's now my pleasure to introduce Bruce Figueroa, Senior Vice President and Division Executive for the nonprofit and healthcare sectors of Citizens Bank. Bruce?
Thank you, Joe. And on behalf of Citizens, we just want to, all my colleagues and former colleagues, we would like to express how pleased we are to be here to honor Gorham, one of our truly key employees and best colleagues. I think all of us obviously have been touched by Gorham's kindness and advice, but what I thought I would try and do is give you an insider's view from somebody who worked with Gorham for 10 years. And in my role in nonprofits and given Gorham's connections in the nonprofit world, I think it's safe to say I dealt with Gorham on a daily basis for the 10 years we worked together. And I have to tell you, it was exhausting. But I mean that in the best possible way, because he just, even today, we had lunch back in November, he just brings an energy and an urgency to the business world that's really inspiring. And even at lunch, he continues to pepper me on have you met with so-and-so, and do you know so-and-so, and when is the last time we call in this particular organization? So that energy is infectious and really helps all of us at the bank. And so I want to just quickly go through lessons. I wrote down lessons I've learned from Gorham over the 10 years we worked together, and many of you, I think, will appreciate these. The first, and he's a master at this, is punctuality. And so for Gorham, being 5 minutes early to an appointment is like being 5 minutes late. 10 minutes is pretty good, 15 minutes is perfect. But really the lesson there is it shows respect for the person you're going to meet with. Transportation, which is tied into the first lesson, is always drive yourself so that you can control the situation and try and be there on time, and also know all the shortcuts. And for those of you who have driven with Gorham, he's used to be a fairly quick driver. And so in my 10 years, I would often look back and say, why did I let the 88-year-old drive? But I survived, and we would always show up early. Third lesson is attire. Suit and tie, always. Always. And, in Gorham, maybe, for those of us at the bank, he would sort of allow casual dressing, and that his definition of casual was late at night, all alone at your desk. You could take your suit coat off, but never not have a suit. But Gorham didn't practice that casual dress code. He would always, I never saw him without his suit coat on in all those years. Lunch. Lunch is important, and the lesson there is first that lunch should be enjoyable and should be an event. And I think Gorham was the master of hosting lunch. And we know his secret because he would come to the Harvard Club or the Country Club, and of course they would know him so well. And so his keys to lunch were, one, it had to last an hour, no more. You had to order within 60 seconds of sitting down. And the staff knew this, so they would accommodate that. And then, of course, the last was macaroons for dessert. But it was just, the lesson there is really use it as a way to enjoy, make friends, and he was just the master at that. Follow-up had to be immediate and in writing and complimentary. And I think we've all received those notes. And I don't know about you, but I've saved all my Gorham notes. So if I'm having a bad day at work, I just pull them out and read them, because he would say things about me that my mother wouldn't say. They were so complimentary. So, humor. And Joe alluded to it. It's just he has a great sense of humor. And humor is so important in business because why not deal with people that you enjoy? And if you're miserable, you're not going to do business with someone. So humor is very important. But modesty is also a lesson I learned. And, Gorham really learned the art of being a facilitator and really enjoying others' success. And I think that's a critical lesson. And he was the master of it. And we have many people, Tom Hollister, Tom O'Leary, Bob Mahoney, who managed Gorham. And I will let you in on a secret. Gorham, during performance review, really didn't want to speak about himself. But those of us who worked with him, I would keep track every year of all the introductions and all the business that resulted from his introductions, and I would send it to his manager to make sure he got credit, because otherwise they would never know. And I think it's safe to say that many of the people in this room are doing business with Citizens because of introductions Gorham made. And if you're not doing business with us, I'm going to let Gorham know, and you'll be getting a call. And the last, and I think the most important lesson, is kindness. Friendships matter in business. And, helping people matters, whether it's reviewing a resume, I guess, Joe, making fun of your dress. I think you look wonderful. But, a career consult, a resume, and most important, introductions. Networking is really what it's all about. And that's why we're all here tonight. So those lessons, those of us at Citizens, we commercial banking at Citizens has grown quite a bit, and we have a lot of people who have never met Gorham. So our role at Citizens is to continue those lessons, pass them on. Luckily, we're aided, as many of you know, the main meeting room in the commercial banking floors at 28 State Street is named for Gorham. His picture sits outside the room, and that's where our future commercial bankers are trained. So we're able to impart those lessons for the next generation. And last thing I'd like to say is just to recognize and thank Gorham's family, because it's not easy to reach 100 without the support of the family. And if it weren't for you, we wouldn't have this great friend. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce, and also thanks to Citizens Bank for their support of Gorham throughout his career and also for this event. Gorham has supported many organizations throughout his life, and tonight they will be acknowledged in some fashion or another. Having said that, it's now my pleasure to introduce Kevin Marinelli, President of the Treasurers Club.
Thank you, Joe. On behalf of the Treasurers Club, I want to welcome everyone tonight and thank you for coming out to celebrate Gorham's 100th birthday. In 1956, Gorham founded the Treasurers Club of Boston to provide a forum to meet other financial professionals like himself. This organization would not only provide an opportunity for members to broaden their knowledge, but more importantly, it would create a community where they could learn from each other and support each other. And over the past 59 years, Gorham has provided his friendship and support and counsel to hundreds, if not thousands, of men and women throughout the greater Boston business community, and has certainly left a lasting impression on everyone he's met. I think you've already started to hear that very common theme throughout everybody's story tonight, and everybody has a very personal story to share. So tonight, you'll get a glimpse into the life of a man that is Gorham, and to hear from several people whose lives have been impacted by him and will bear witness to this impressive and lasting legacy. I've known Gorham for maybe a half a dozen years now, and going through this whole process was very rewarding because I think some people in this room have shared with you they've known him for 20, 30 years, and in that brief time I feel like I've gotten to learn about him in a lot of the same ways. Recently, Gorham shared with me that the Treasurers Club still holds a very special place in his heart and is one of the proudest accomplishments that he has and represents one of the most important aspects of his life. And I think a lot of it is just because of his ability to reach out and mentor people. And And it's interesting, just the other day, he's still active in trying to find new members and finding new people to mentor. And when I had lunch with him, the same kind of conversations, what can I do for you? Would it help if I gave you a list of people you could go after for the Treasurers Club as prospective members? So of course, in a couple of days, I receive a handwritten note of several different people that we need to reach out to. So tonight, I am honored to have the privilege to represent the Treasurers Club. And on behalf of the previous 55 presidents, our current Board of Trustees, and our leadership team, and on behalf of the next 50 presidents and future leaders yet to come, I want to thank Gorham for his friendship, I want to thank him for his kindness, and I want to thank him most of all for his mentorship, and wish him a very happy 100th birthday.
Thank you, Kevin. Gorham has been involved what was then called the Financial Executives Institute since the early 1960s, including serving as president 50 years ago. To represent FEI and its members, I'm very happy to introduce a very dear friend and this year's president of FEI, Sue Gorman.
I have props and speaking notes because tonight is way too important for me not to mention a few things. So good evening. Tonight on this very special occasion, it's an honor to stand before you as president of the Boston chapter of FEI. I bring birthday greetings to Gorham on reaching his 100th birthday on behalf of our roughly 700 members throughout the Boston area. For those of you who don't know, Financial Executives International, FEI, is an 80-year-old professional association for senior finance executives. FEI began in 1931 as the Controllers Institute of America. In 1962, the name changed to Financial Executives Institute. Gorham became president of FEI in 1974 at the age of 59. I was 11 years old that year. I remember that year well. It was the year my dad died. I wish I had known then that I would grow up to know a man like Gorham, who would take me under his wing, help direct and guide me, and ultimately help me get to this position as president of FEI almost exactly 40 years later. FEI transitioned once again in the year 2000 and became the Financial Executives International. Today, there are 74 chapters throughout the United States and Japan. We are over 11,000 members strong. So I also bring a message from our national organization's president, the chairman of the National Board of FEI, Mitch Danaher, that I'd like to read to you. He wanted me to deliver this on his behalf. FEI is a membership-driven association, and you could not ask for a better member than Gorham Brigham. His life story is a reflection of what we all should aspire to become. There is no question that he has made the world a better place and set a wonderful example that inspires others to accomplish great things. It is truly a privilege to call him one of ours. A glimpse into Gorham's world is one of many handwritten notes of thanks and praises for a sharply dressed, well-spoken man. He is genuine, caring, and always motivated others to succeed with gentle persuasion. His world is one of being on time and keeping commitments, whether in business or life. Gorham is a man of great character, unquestionable ethics, and high morals. For these attributes and many more, Financial Executives International says thank you. You have taught us how to be better finance professionals and have inspired us to be better people all around. Mitch would like to enclose Toast Gorham, so if you would all raise your glass, that's what the prop is for. And this is cheers to Gorham on behalf of his 100th birthday from FEI. Hear, hear. I'm not done. I'm not done yet. So, as the sole female speaker tonight, I did notice that. I'd like to represent the probably hundreds of women that Gorham has influenced over the years. On so many occasions, even women outside of FEI have come up to me and told me how much Gorham meant to them over the course of their careers. And he didn't discriminate when it came to mentoring others, as Joe mentioned. And he really couldn't help himself, could he? And he would, on occasion, make a comment about one's physical appearance. And I know, because he would tell me, he'd do it to men and women. And I know things about you men out there that he's told me. And there was an occasion years ago, I've known Gorham for about 20 years, so I met him when I was very young. And for some reason, he didn't like my hair. I was pretty young. So we were on a committee together, and every time we left, we'd hug, kiss. Well, this one time, he hugged me, good, always very kind. But he stopped and he looked at me and he said, "Do you like your hair that way?" Over the years, like many of you, I've also been the recipient of very special handwritten notes of advice, encouragement, and praise. Yes, he always believed in me too. Even when I doubted myself, I'd get those special notes. I called these Gorham text messages. As FEI president, I get 2 a week. And I now say, I'm going to text Gorham back. Got it? Oh, there's a text from Gorham. I got to text him back. It's very sweet. In planning for this historical birthday event, and truly, we've made history tonight. I know we have. We needed to have someone host tonight for us. And we needed someone very special, someone who knew Gorham, someone who loved Gorham, someone who could hold the right amount of charm. So you, Joe DiLorenzo, are perfect for this evening. You're taking such good care of us in Gorham. So on behalf of our FEI Boston board and chapter, thank you for all of the work. Wait till you see the work this man has done tonight. Thank you. And I too want to say a very special thank you to Gorham's family. We're thrilled to have you here tonight. We love Gorham, and you'll see that tonight. So thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Sue. There are a few individuals who have worked with Gorham and are very well known in the Boston business community who would like to share their sentiments. The first clip is by Bob Mahoney, president of Belmont Savings Bank, and former executive vice chair of Citizens Financial Group and former president and CEO of Citizens Bank of Massachusetts. Immediately following will be a second video from Tom Hollister, who's the managing director at Westco Capital Partners, former vice chair of Citizens Financial Group, and also former president and CEO of Citizens Bank of Massachusetts.
So I first met Gorham Brigham in 1993, right after Citizens Bank bought the Boston Five, and I had made my tour of the bank. Met Gorham as I went around, met everybody. He said, "I'd like to have a luncheon with you tomorrow." And I said, "Fine." And I had my first Gorham Brigham luncheon. I don't really know why everyone else calls it lunch, and Gorham calls it luncheon, but I guess the difference is Gorham's there, so that makes it a luncheon. And Gorham explained to me, he was 78 at the time, by the way, by far the oldest employee at Belmont, at Citizens Bank. And he explained to me at the time that he'd be leaving early that day, as he does every day. He leaves at 3 o'clock every day to go play tennis. And I said, all right, fine. And he said, but I do make up for it because I come in at 5 o'clock in the morning. And frankly, I thought he was a little off his rocker, but it turns out that's what he did, 5 to 3. That was his day. And I asked him what he actually does at the bank. And he said to me he does business development. And I said, oh, so do you like lend money? He said, no. And I said, do you so take deposits, open accounts? He said, no, I don't open accounts. And I said, what do you do exactly? He said, I do business development. And I said, all right, fine, we'll see how that works out. He said, oh, by the way, if I don't like the new team, the new atmosphere, I'm out of here. And frankly, after that luncheon, I was pretty okay with that notion that he might be out here. But as the weeks and months and years went by, I came to appreciate what business development is the Gorham Brigham way. And it means making friends, making impressions on people, being nice to people. And I don't think there's a single person that had the impact on citizens in the community that Gorham Brigham had. He took this little bank that nobody had ever heard of before and helped make it very well known and most importantly very well respected. So he's brought a new meaning to the term business development for me, and he's one of the best there is, but more importantly he's one of the best guys there is, and I'm thrilled to be here to join with others and wishing him a happy 100th. Thanks for everything, Gorham. And by the way, you're also very good for the ego. I'm one of the hundreds of people that you've told, I'm sure, that they are the best leader they ever met, and I'm happy to join that large but impressive group. So thanks for all of that, Gorham. You're a great guy.
Gorham Brigham has many wonderful qualities. His most exceptional is that he does unto others as he would have them do unto him. I had the pleasure to work with Gorham at Citizens for many years, and he was a living legend in the company, an example and inspiration to us all because he generated an unbelievable amount of business, but it was also how he conducted himself, both professionally and personally. A dozen years ago, we expanded Citizens' downtown headquarters to include a brand new conference center. And because he was such a legend in the company, we named the largest room in honor of Gorham Brigham. So we gathered 200 people, family and friends of Gorham and colleagues, and I had the chance to speak at the dedication, and I spontaneously asked, how many of you have had a personal favor done for you by Gorham? Every hand in the room went up in the air. It was stunning. We stood there in silence, looking at each other, and then we all turned and looked at Gorham. Gorham, God bless you. You are an example, a model, and an inspiration to us all.
Now you're going to see a video celebrating Gorham's life. The event committee did a great job planning all aspects of this event over the past 6 or 7 months. This included former FEI Boston chapter president Sharon Merrill. Sharon not only narrated the video, she was instrumental in writing the script for the keepsake book that you will see shortly, as well as Gorham's life video. So please enjoy 11 decades of F. Gorham Brigham Jr.
Welcome to the world of F. Gorham Brigham Jr. It's a world of handwritten notes that offer thanks and praise. It's a world of a sharply dressed and well-spoken man, someone who genuinely wants people to connect with each other and gives gentle persuasion to make that happen. It's a world of always being on time and of doing what he says he will do when he says he will do it. Gorham's is the world of a family man, a patriot, a distinguished executive, a generous, altruistic giver, and dedicated relationship builder. Gorham is 100 years old and counting. Let's look at the past century of his life and see many things that he has witnessed, experienced, and enjoyed in all of that time.
It's a long way to Tipperary. It's a long way to...
The world was at war in 1915, the year Gorham was born.
To the sweetest girl I know. Goodbye.
The Red Sox, with Babe Ruth, won the World Series. There were cars manufactured in Waltham that could be had for $600, and Victorian fashion was still in, but clearly on the way out. The 20s roared in, along with gangster Al Capone, votes for women, and drinks at the speakeasy. It was 10 years of elementary schooling for Gorham, at the Chestnut Hill School, and then at Rivers.
Played the usual sports, football, baseball.
Clear again, let us sing a song of cheer again.
The 30s. Shirley Temple, Joe Louis, and Broadway production extravaganzas dominated the 1930s, along with the sinister presence of Hitler.
When I got to the 10th grade, I moved to Milton Academy. I was on the baseball team, and I was manager of the hockey team, sang in the Glee Club. In my senior year at Milton Academy, I was playing right field on the baseball team, and I came to bat, and I hit a beautiful ball into the right field, but I made a big mistake on the way to second base. I dropped my hat, so I stopped and picked it up, and I was called out at second base, and the coach sent me to the shower, so that was not very good. I graduated in 33. I went to Harvard, class of 37, and then I went to the Harvard Business School, class of 39. I worked for a year in public accounting.
The 40s brought World War II, Frank Sinatra, and the famous movie Casablanca. Gorham was called up to join the Army in 1940 and worked for the one and only General George C. Marshall.
I came home from playing golf, and my mother was crying. I said, "What's the trouble?" She said, "You've been ordered to active duty effective tomorrow in the office of General Marshall." So I went in the next morning, resigned my job with public accounting, and took the Federal Express down and reported for duty the next morning in the office of the Chief of Staff. And my boss said to me, "Take the day off, find a place to live, and come ready to work tomorrow." That's how it started. I worked in General Marshall's office from 1940 to November 45, and I rose to the rank of lieutenant colonel. General Marshall was surrounded by a lot of remarkable people. I mean, Eisenhower worked for him. Smith was a major in the office when I was there. Bradley was a major. He signed my honeymoon orders. I got engaged the first summer I was there. I met a girl at a church supper. We had a romance and got married September before Pearl Harbor. We had a honeymoon at Sea Island. That's in Florida. It's a very fancy resort. Pearl Harbor Day, I was having a cocktail party, and they called up and said that Pearl Harbor had happened. General Marshall was going to the White House, and we were ordered to come in uniform the next day. I guess we thought something would happen, but we didn't expect Pearl Harbor, because they weren't ready. They sent them a warning the night before, but it didn't get there in time.
The Legion of Merit is a military award of the United States Armed Forces that's given for exceptionally meritorious conduct in the performance of outstanding services and achievements. This award was presented to Gorham by General George C. Marshall in 1945, which was the last day both of them were in office. And Gorham had 3 of his 4 children while he was in the Army. After the war, Gorham worked for 3 years as Secretary, Treasurer, and Chief Financial Officer for Saco Lowell, which was one of the largest textile machine manufacturers in the United States at that time.
Saco Lowell went broke, and I then worked for a company called EBSCO. I worked for a famous man named Bernard Gordon. And after a year or 2 there, I went to work with Boston Safe Deposit and Trust Company.
In the 50s, we loved Lucy, we loved Marilyn, we liked Ike, and we swooned for Elvis. And then there was the mysterious Sputnik. Gorham founded the Treasurers Club, always looking for ways to make relationships flourish in a networking format. Gorham worked for the Boston Safe Deposit and Trust Company through its purchase by Boston 5-cent Savings Bank. One day, his boss suggested that in his spare time, Gorham should oversee hospital laundry, which was an organization that provided clean linens to Boston's hospitals. At the time, Gorham had a full-time job, 4 young kids at home, the Army Reserves, and a lot of other things to do. But oversee it, he did. Come on and do the jailhouse rock with me, rock. The 60s stirred us up with the British invasion and the Beatles, 9 world championships by the Boston Celtics, a man on the moon, and the summer of love. But we also saw the assassinations of 3 important and beloved leaders, President John Kennedy, Senator Robert Kennedy, and Dr. Martin Luther King. Gorham joined FEI in 1963 and became president the very next year. He was one of the first 5 people to be inducted into the FEI Hall of Fame in 2006. More about that later. Gorham was promoted to colonel and continued to serve in the U.S. Army Reserve until 1967. Today, Gorham is still the only lifetime member of the Salvation Army's Greater Boston Advisory Board since joining that organization after World War II. The hippies ushered in the 1970s, followed by Jaws, Jimmy Carter, John Travolta's Disco World, and Bobby Orr's famous Flying Stanley Cup winning goal. And Amy and Gorham enjoyed the good life. Ah, those glittering 1980s. They showed us Pac-Man, boomboxes, the beautiful Princess Diana, Michael Jackson's Moonwalk, and the birth of personal computers and software. Gorham was part of the merger of Boston 5 with Citizens Bank at that time and was in the prime of his banking career.
Later in life, I was with Boston 5 when it was bought by Citizens Bank at a time when Larry Fish was the CEO. And Larry interviewed me for a job at Citizens. After a long interview, he said, "Gorham, I don't see any reason why I should hire you. You really don't know much about anything. What can you say on your behalf?" "Larry, I'll bring in lots of business." He said, "I'll hire you."
Enjoying important 50-year reunions, and as always, making more and more friends along the way.
touch this.
Dream teams dominated Boston in the 1990s, as did the legendary Mayor Menino and the destruction of the original Boston Garden. Gorham was honored at President's Night at the Country Club for his role with Treasurers Club and enjoyed spending lots and lots of time with his family.
I got a feeling.
Which brings us to our current era of the 2000s. It's the era of too much information, the era of the first African-American U.S. president, the joy of 4 winning local pro sports teams, and the unfortunate aftermath of aggressive terrorism, but the hopeful promise of more unity around the globe. In Gorham's world, the 2000s are a time of family celebrations, continuous giving, landmark reunions and birthdays, and Lifetime Achievement Awards. So many big birthdays and wonderful family celebrations in the 2000s, and they continue on and on. Gorham was inducted into the FEI Hall of Fame in 2006, an award which was accepted on his behalf in New York City by Joe DiLorenzo. Al Faber and Mike Simons attended a local Boston chapter celebration of that award.
The Financial Executives International Hall of Fame was established to formally recognize individuals who have made significant and long-term contributions to this dynamic profession. Gorham, tonight we present you and our other inductees with this special honor. This award recognizes your exceptional leadership, accomplishments as a financial executive, and extraordinary professionalism and pride, and someone who's been influential in enhancing credibility in the profession. On behalf of FEI, Gorham, congratulations.
Thank you very much. It's been a privilege to be a member of FEI. It's been one of the most important factors in my life the last 42 years, where I've attended many meetings, seminars, conferences, and at the same time gained great professional knowledge, made many wonderful friends, and good contacts in the business world. It's an honor to be honored, and I thank you very much, Colleen.
Our pleasure.
Boston Business Journal created the CFO of the Year Award in 2009. It was designed to recognize contributions to community, commitment to financial best practices, and strategic vision. Gorham won this first award, and that award is now named in his honor. Gorham received the first Harvard Business School Volunteer Service Award in 2012 in honor of the length of his service as class secretary and treasurer. Always wanting to stay in touch with his many, many friends, Gorham has hosted hundreds and hundreds of lunch dates since his retirement. Some were originally at the Country Club, and in recent years, many at the 37 Perkins Street Bistro. A collage of Gorham's affiliations includes an astonishing 75 years of involvement with schools, hospitals, financial clubs, military organizations, and charities. At 100 years old, Gorham is still actively involved in fundraising and other responsibilities as class secretary and treasurer of his Harvard College class of 1937 and his Harvard Business School class of 1939. Gorham and his family have distinguished relationships with many, many historic and patriotic organizations.
Cardinal Cushing asked me to be a trustee of St. Elizabeth's. I was the first Protestant to be on that board. I remember my first meeting, I was in the back row keeping quiet, and then I raised my hand and I said, we don't have any women on the board. And I remember when the next meeting, a very nice-looking woman was there, and he said, "Bring her up here where I can look at her." Society of the Mayflower Descendants. I had two men people on the Mayflower, Stephen Hopkins and Brewster. And then Gorham said I was active in the Society of the Cincinnati, was president of the Mass Society, and active in the Colonial Wars. When we moved out here, I got active in Newton Wellesley Hospital and became an overseer and trustee. Our children have been going to the Carroll School, which was a little nursery school. The head of the school wanted to retire, so I ran into this business of dyslexia, and another fellow and I got interested, and we founded the Carroll School, which is a school for dyslexic children. And for a place, we bought this little school, and later we moved it to Lincoln. Today, the Carroll School has over 400 pupils, probably the best known school for dyslexia in the world. So there's the story pretty much.
100 years of giving, relationship building, hard work, patriotism, and good old-fashioned family love. Gorham's world is one of great character, of unquestionable ethics, high morals, and a whole lot of warm affection. Gorham has taught us all so much, and he goes on to inspire us every day. Happy 100th birthday, Gorham. We all love you.
Please allow me to introduce two back-to-back videos, one by Mike Oliveri, Executive Vice President of the American City Business Journals, the parent of the Boston Business Journal, and Dr. Rob Havers, President of the George C. Marshall Foundation.
This award, and shortly after becoming published for the Boston Business Journal, I received a very nice handwritten note in the mail from Gorham Brigham, requesting that, introducing himself to me and requesting that we have lunch together. I set the note aside on my desk, and a few days later, I ran into Bob Smythe, who at the time was the president of Citizens Bank in Massachusetts, and I mentioned to him that a member of his team had written me this nice handwritten note, and I remember because he looked at me and he said, "Well, who was it?" And I said, "It was Gorham Brigham." He got this big smile on his face, and he said, "If Gorham Brigham wants to have lunch with you, you need to have lunch with Gorham." And I said, "Okay, there it is." And then a few weeks later, when Gorham and I were having lunch, it didn't take but a few minutes for me to realize what a treasure he was for the financial executive community in Boston through his work with the Treasurers Club and FEI, and just how many people he knew. And it was such a pleasure to have gotten to know him. Fast forward a few years, in the fall of 2008, during the financial market gyrations and issues, the Boston Business Journal decided that 2009 would be the year of the CFO, and that it was time for us to create a program recognizing good financial discipline and honoring some of the top CFOs in the region through our CFO of the Year awards. As part of that program, we also decided that we would have a Lifetime Achievement Award. Within hours of us announcing the program and announcing there would be a Lifetime Achievement Award, we started receiving calls, emails, nominations online from dozens and dozens of folks imploring us that the Lifetime Achievement Award honoree just had to be Gorham Brigham. Interestingly, we had Gorham in the back of our minds as a good nominee for this, but the outpouring we received was really over the top in a lot of ways. The secret that we had was that 2 days before the first CFO of the Year awards in 2009, we decided, based on the outpouring that we had received from the financial executive community, that we should name this award the F. Gorham Brigham Lifetime Achievement Award. And so with great pride, our secret that day was, as we announced Gorham as the Lifetime Achievement Award winner, was that moving forward that the award would be named after him, and has been since. And so
Colonel Brigham, it is a distinct pleasure to attend your birthday party and also to be able to deliver this video message. We've been a firm supporter of the Marshall Foundation for more than 50 years. We have a letter in our files dated 1963. So you are a tremendously dedicated supporter of ours, and for that we extend our thanks. But you are also, as far as we know, the last living link with General Marshall's staff from World War II. Not only are you a link with history, but you are living history. The list of those with whom you worked, Omar Bradley, J. Lawton Collins, Frank McCarthy, is a who's who of General Marshall's staff. So it really is a tremendous personal pleasure as a historian and a professional pleasure as the president of the Marshall Foundation to be here with you on your birthday. Let me extend birthday wishes from myself and from the whole Marshall Foundation, and indeed the wide constituency who still revere and honour General Marshall throughout this country and throughout this world. A very happy birthday to you.
Now my pleasure to introduce Tom O'Leary. Tom's the Executive Vice President of Blue Hills Bank and a supporter of this evening's event. He's also former Executive Vice President at Citizens Bank of Massachusetts, and I believe Gorham's last direct supervisor. Tom?
Good evening. That is correct. I was Gorham's last manager, but as many people understand, I learned an awful lot more from Gorham than I ever imparted to him. He was an absolute consummate professional and just had an unbelievable work ethic. You also know that Gorham arrived at work somewhere between 4 and 5 in the morning every day. To beat traffic, I was in somewhere between 6:30 and 7, and he was waiting for me. And he had a legal pad with an agenda of what names he was pursuing on behalf of the bank. And it wasn't just my group. David Roundtree is here from the professionals banking group of the old days at Citizens. It was professionals banking. It was Bruce Figueroa and not-for-profit. It was all areas of the bank. And he just was unbelievable in that. If he did not invent networking, he perfected it. It's just perfect. He felt unproductive if he didn't have a breakfast meeting at the Harvard Club and a lunch meeting at the Harvard Club. And he just, in terms of, I thought I knew marketing and how to influence people and become customers, and I was a piker. As you also know, he was a career counselor to many of you. Brian Cuddy is here, and his partner Bill Griffith. He would have given you a run for your money if he decided to go into really career counseling from your area of the business. He met with just hundreds and hundreds of people and gave them advice. I just wanted to share a couple of examples. There was a daughter of a very prominent Boston businessman who was re-entering the workforce after having some children and actually going through a divorce. And knowing Gorham very well, he suggested to her that she see him to talk about what she might do as she re-entered the workforce. Unfortunately for her, and to this day, my brother-in-law counts that as one of the highlights of his life, of his career and of his life. That's just the impact Gorham had. While he has remained very, very solid from an intellectual perspective, as he was at the bank, his driving was starting to maybe leave a little bit to be desired. And I recall meeting Gorham and Lisa Murray, who's not here, who was out on a call out in 495 somewhere. And I met them, and Gorham had driven Lisa to this meeting. And after the meeting, they came back to Boston, and I had to go somewhere else. And I just remember watching the car just weave and fall. And I said, well, that's not good. And then Gorham had a little fender bender right outside the bank. And so I went to Tom Hollister, who was president of the bank at the time, and said, Tom, I'm really, really concerned about Gorham. And so Tom asked me how old Gorham was. And I said, I think he was 88. So Tom said to me, you know what, Tom? I'm starting a new policy. Anybody in Citizens, Massachusetts who's 85 years or older, we are going to provide car service. And while he kind of bought, a little bit at first, Bob Smythe convinced him, Tom Hollister convinced him, no, it's the right thing to do. And I think he actually enjoyed it. So, in learning about Gorham, because he has, as you've seen it, he has just such a phenomenal background, I found something that was actually written about his father in 1964. And this is F. Gorham Brigham, you've seen it. And it said, Dr. Brigham was meticulous to detail and a prodigious letter writer. Gorham, obviously the apple didn't fall far from the tree, and we're happy for that. You are someone, Gorham, who comes along once in a century, and we are so happy that you've lived a century to share your wisdom and be a role model for all of us. So God bless you, happy birthday. And the only thing I would say for you people at Citizens Bank, I'm in negotiations with him to represent Blue Hills Bank for the next 10 years.
As you saw, in Gorham's own words, the Carroll School was a big part of his life. It's now my pleasure to introduce Steve Wilkins, head of the Carroll School.
28 years ago, Gorham Brigham brought forth in this metropolitan area a new school, conceived in scientific research and dedicated to the proposition that all dyslexic children deserve an excellent education. Sound good? I thought at this August occasion I should use profound words to describe what Gorham has done. Honored to be with you tonight to represent a very grateful school. Our board chair, Sam Foster, is with us. Our director of development, Naomi Hitchcock, is with us. People who have collaborated with Gorham over decades. We collaborated, and now I can tell you, being towards the end of the program, we corroborated the analysis that Gorham is an amazing mentor and builder of talent, which is what schools ought to be. Connector of people, a relationship builder, which is what schools ought to be. Consummate and gracious host, a fundraiser extraordinaire, a champion of the importance of creative education, an understated and humble man, and you're all trying to claim that the most profound thing he did in his career was work with you, where actually it was working with us. As it said in the invitation to this wonderful event, he considers his most outstanding accomplishment the co-founding of the Carroll School in Lincoln, Massachusetts, for children with dyslexia. Started in 1967, with just a handful of students, the school's grown to more than 400 boys and girls in grades 1 through 9. And Gorham continues as a trustee emeritus to this day. I was at my dad's 85th birthday on Saturday, and all he wanted to do was watch the Patriots with his family, and I thought that was spectacular. This probably tops it. When we tell the story of the founding of the Carroll School, we mention just a handful of names. We mentioned Dr. Edwin Cole, who was a neurologist at Mass General Hospital, who would have children come into his clinic, and he would diagnose them as dyslexic or not. Junie Lowe, who was one of Gorham's lifelong friends, who started in on the Carroll School project because his child went to Mass General, was diagnosed by Dr. Cole. And Dr. Cole would say, "Would you like to start a school?" He said that to everybody who walked into his clinic. He met shortly thereafter Nancy Herndon and her husband Noah and said to them, "Would you like to start a school?" And met Gorham. And that collection of people started the school. When we tell this story, one would assume that Gorham was dyslexic himself, or that he had family members or children who were dyslexic, or somehow this reading disability, this school-based learning problem, had adversely affected his life. And the answer to those three questions, no, he was not dyslexic, no family members were not, and no, it had not really affected his life. But consistent with everything you've heard tonight, he knew that Greater Boston needed a school that understood how to protect talent that was being really underserved and even abused in traditional schools. So that's how Gorham became associated with the school. About 5 years ago, I think, Naomi, Gorham came and visited the school he founded. I was teaching a 7th grade math class, and I don't know if there are any 7th graders in the room. There might be. Good, okay. Because I'm not going to say the nicest thing about 7th graders. So I'm teaching a group of 7th graders who are not necessarily known for their grace and social proclivities. And Gorham walks into my classroom, and I say, "Students, I'd like to introduce you to the man who founded this school." And instantaneously, 7th graders gave him a standing ovation. And it was a beautiful moment. I'm going to finish up by telling you I'm absolutely crestfallen. I thought I was the only one who received letters from Gorham. So these are 9 letters that I received at Carroll School in 2014 from Gorham Brigham. The last one says, "I'm delighted that you're going to be attending my 100th birthday party. You might consider some promotional materials to distribute." Which are available at that coat check. And he asked me for the 9th time in 2014 if I made contact with, I'll call him Mr. Jones, which I have not yet done. So Gorham's legacy, not yet complete, is of a man who looked at challenges and said, "I don't understand why we can't overcome that. Have you tried X or Y or Z?" Which is exactly what's necessary to help dyslexic children be successful. We are grateful that this man, with no particular connection to the issue of dyslexia, dedicated himself to the founding of this wonderful school. Gorham, happy birthday, happy 100 years. Thank you for Carroll School.
Thanks, Stephen, and thanks everybody from the Carroll School. We know how much that school means to Gorham. It's now my pleasure to introduce somebody who, other than maybe Scotty, has known Gorham longer than anybody here this evening. Please welcome to the podium F. Gorham Brigham III.
Good evening. Among those gathered here tonight are 3 generations of Brighams, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, as well as spouses, nieces, and nephews. We are here with you in celebration of our patriarch, Gorham Brigham, who has now joined the members of that distinguished club, the Centenarians. For myself, and on behalf of our family, we wish to express our deepest gratitude to every one of you for inviting us to be with you and for the great honor you have conferred on Gorham by convening this incredible birthday celebration. And clearly, it is not just a matter of his reaching this lofty milestone. It is also a reflection of your appreciation for his many contributions to the greater Boston business, education, and medical communities. Most importantly, it is symbolic of your kindness toward him and the great affection you have for him. Of the many traits Gorham has passed along to us, one of the strongest is his work ethic. He set the example by leaving early for work, coming home late, and spending large blocks of his spare time creating organizations such as the Hospitals Laundry Association and the Carroll School, and helping them to succeed. It is not easy to follow his lead, but we are doing our best. Dad was born just after the onset of World War I, served his country in the Army during World War II, and retired as a full colonel after 30 years of service in the Reserve. He finally retired from his position at Citizens Bank less than a decade ago. And of course, I'm sure all of you are familiar with his work in founding the Treasurers Club of Boston and promoting the Boston chapter of Financial Executives International. Our family would like to personally thank all of you here this evening for coming together for this wonderful celebration. We would also like to express our special thanks to the generous sponsors, to the hosts, FEI, and the Treasurers Club, and especially to Joe DiLorenzo for the many, many hours he spent with my dad collecting the memories you have seen here tonight. This has been an unforgettable tribute to a wonderful, humble gentleman. In closing, I would like to add one thought, which unfortunately you've already heard. Some of you already know, but some may not. Although my dad is largely housebound, he still manages to get himself around, and he truly enjoys the company of the many friends and acquaintances he has made over the years. Having visitors at his home in West Newton keeps him engaged and keeps his mind active. If you would like to visit him, I encourage you to give him a call. In particular, should you suggest a lunch meeting and hint at bringing some sandwiches, I'm confident you will find him very receptive. He does look forward to these occasions, so feel welcome to check in with him. You can be sure it will bring him great pleasure. We thank all of you from the bottom of our hearts.
Thanks, Gorham, for a very touching remark, and thank you for the kindness towards me. Thank you. There are some people who we haven't acknowledged tonight thus far, and without them, this evening could not have taken place. Namely, Gary Roderick and Carla Ryan from the Harvard Club, Mark Giannet and Sal from PSAV, who is doing the audio visual tonight, because otherwise I'd be sitting here with a mouse and we would not be doing good right now. Dee Calabrese and Carmen for all the work that they've done for both FEI and Treasurers Club, and continue to work with Gorham. And finally, Karen Regan, who is the FEI administrator, who represents McKenna Management, but she also had to deal with 7 distinct personalities as part of the last 7 months. And we do appreciate all of the hard work that you did and all of the patience you had for each of us, especially me. So thank you all. There's really one person in the Boston business circle who sort of embodies the qualities closest to Gorham, including helping countless numbers of people in the community. He is Vice President Emeritus of FEI Boston. He is currently one of 3 honorary members of the Treasurers Club of Boston, including Gorham's great friend, as is mine, Jim Crane, and Gorham himself. He is the first winner of the Boston Business Journal's F. Gorham Brigham Jr. Lifetime Achievement Award, and a man I hold in the highest of esteem. It's my pleasure to introduce my dear friend and a mentor, Al Faber.
Take a chance on trying to jump up here, but you know, I've spent half my life, more than half my life, following in the footsteps of someone named Brigham. It was an honor and a pleasure to be following you this evening. I never learned what I should learn from Gorham. He asked me today at lunch, he said, "Do you have notes?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Do you have your glasses?" And I said, "Well, you know me, I'm a vain old man, so I won't have my glasses." So he said, "Well, you want me to write out your notes for you?" Of course, I didn't listen to him. So now I'm stuck with these glasses belonging to a very cute blonde over here. And I'm going to read, no, I'm not going to. Gail, these are your prescription glasses. Whoops. Okay, well, in conclusion, let me. Okay, the year is 1967. Gorham is 52, and I'm 29. Yes, at one time I was 29. We were at a meeting at the State Street Bank. So 1967, the building was built in 1966. It was a special meeting. I was, as per usual, totally out of my element. I was with all the centers of influence in the financial services community. So I sat back and I did what I usually do, and that's listen, and I didn't make a lot of comments. And when it was over, because Gorham and I hadn't met at that point, this elegant, dapper, regular guy, Boston Brahmin, because he is a regular guy, came over and said to me, "Are you an early bird?" Well, I was sort of taken back. I mean, now I know what he meant. And I said, "Well, yeah, I'm usually in town around 8 o'clock, which was probably a fabrication because most people know I'm in town at 6 o'clock. And Gorham said, "Well, I'm in town at 5 o'clock, and we're going to have breakfast, so let's split the difference." So I figured 8 and 5, that maybe it was 6:30, 7 o'clock, and whatever. And Gorham said, "Can you meet me at 6? And I figured that I had almost blown it right away, so I said, "Sure, Gorham." And we had a very nice breakfast, and we had it at the Real Ritz-Carlton in the cafe, which was an unusual spot, but it was wonderful. And at the end of the breakfast, he said to me, "Do you play tennis?" Now, I'm a kid from Brooklyn, and I've been involved in the rackets, but never a tennis racket. But I said, "Sure." I said, "Oh, I play tennis." Thank God, in the 48 years after that, and it's been 48 years, he's never asked me to play tennis. But that was the beginning of many breakfasts, many lunches, many chats, and many of these that you, surprisingly enough, you get the next day after you visited him. He must know where the bodies are buried in the Postal Service. It's the beginning of a relationship based upon understanding, ethics, admiration, trust, all the values that you guys have seen in Gorham over the years, and love. It's 40 years only exceeded by the almost 49 years that my beautiful wife and I have spent together. Gorham is, well, you all know what he is, and everybody has said it on many an occasion, and God willing, we will continue to say it about him. And I'm sure it's a story that you all have shared with Gorham. I hope that it brings a smile to your face and maybe a little tingle to the heartstrings and maybe a tear to the eye. Now, I knew I was going to be the last speaker, and so I asked Joe a question that a 77, I'll be 77 in 2 weeks, a 77-year-old person doesn't ask. And I said, we're talking about the agenda, and I said, well, Joe, how much time do I have? Now, at age 77, that's not a question you want to ask people. And Joe said, you have whatever time you need. I want to take one more minute. Sponsors have been thanked. The wonderful Brigham family has been thanked for all the pleasure and joy and love they've given to their father, grandfather, and great-grandfather. But I want to talk about the people that put this together, and I want to say it in my very direct, unsmiling fashion. They did a wonderful job. Perry Morton, with the discipline and the control and the focus and the love and commitment he had to this process really kept the committee in order. Sue Gorman, I can remember I was with Sue and we were going, it was Gorham's 99th birthday, and we were going through the schedule of FEI dinners, and this cute little gal says, the next dinner is January 14th. Let's have a party. We wouldn't have had the party if it wasn't for this initiative and this commitment. Kevin Marinelli has kept up this wonderful tradition of the Treasurer's Club, and was very instrumental in keeping budget on target. The accolades have to go certainly to him. Sharon Merrill's lilting voice and ability to put the video together really made that video something extraordinary. Peter Rocket, a center of influence in the Boston business community, was very instrumental in developing the sponsor support that we needed to make this happen. And even though you would think when you're handsome and articulate and well-spoken and very accomplished that you don't need any other accolades, You don't know the extent of the work that this guy did, and I'm so proud of him and proud of his efforts for our dear friend and for the great man. I'd like you to just take a pencil and a piece of paper and write down 617 332 9306. Please call Gorham. He's got this great big calendar. He will find room for you, and the club sandwich you'll bring him from wherever you get it. I also want to thank all of you guys for the support of the Brigham legacy, for the love I can feel that permeates this room, and from my heart, because he's been my mentor, and I would not be, for what it's worth, what I am today, assuming I am anything today, if it wasn't for the 48 years and counting that I've had the pleasure of having Gorham as my friend and my mentor. We thank you very much for coming this evening. Joe? You going to call everybody up?
10 years ago today was my final day at Citizens Bank, and Bob Mahoney, who's here, put on a wonderful retirement luncheon at the bank. And he's here today, and I can tell you that that was one of the highlights of my business career. You know, I'm overwhelmed by the number of people who've come here, friends, former associates. I just want to thank all of you for taking time for your busy lives to come and honor me on my 100th birthday. Thank you very much.
1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Gorham. Happy birthday to you.
We have the presentation of a cake. I don't know if anyone wants to cut it. But clearly, I just want to thank you all for being here, for braving the cold, for celebrating the life of this wonderful man. The official portion of the program is over. We have this room to 11 p.m. Grab a cup of coffee, grab a piece of cake, have a glass of wine, and join me, because I will be having a glass of wine or two. So please enjoy yourself, and whenever you decide to leave, have a safe trip home. And I really appreciate all of the efforts that everybody made and all the sentiments that were, and loving sentiments that were expressed tonight on Gorham's behalf. Thank you very much.
Nice haircut. Nice haircut.